Vivid verses.
The induction cooktop hummed at a frequency August barely registered, a steady 60 hertz vibration that mirrored the calculated stillness of his own mind. He was preparing a reduction of shallots and vintage port, the liquid simmering at exactly 185 degrees. To his right, two 6-ounce portions of wild-caught sea bass sat on cedar planks, waiting for the convection oven to reach its target temperature. August didn't just cook, he engineered meals. Every variable, surface tension, heat distribution, molecular breakdown, was a data point. The smart lock on the front door engaged with a muffled mechanical whir. It was 6:17 p.m. Anaya was home. Based on the weight of her footsteps and the deliberate delay before she closed the door, August estimated her agitation level at a 7 on a 10-point scale. She had been at a sovereign woman retreat in the foothills for the weekend. In August's experience, such retreats were breeding grounds for ideological pathogens, half-baked sociological theories designed to provide moral cover for personal desires. He didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He monitored her reflection in the polished chrome of the range hood. She was wearing a new, oversized cashmere wrap in a shade of slate gray. Expensive, performative, and purchased, he noted, from a boutique that didn't appear on their shared ledger. We need to discuss the structural inequities of this partnership, August, she said, her voice carrying a practiced, declamatory weight. August adjusted the flame under the shallots by a fraction of a millimeter. Structural inequities. The phrase was a prepackaged linguistic unit. She wasn't speaking. She was reciting. "I'm listening," August said, his tone as level as a horizon line. "Though I suspect this conversation is less of a dialogue and more of a prepared statement. Give me the abstract." Anaya moved to the edge of the marble island, keeping a strategic distance. "The abstract is this. I have been performing unpaid emotional labor for 3 years. I manage our social ecosystem, I curate the aesthetic of this home, and I maintain the psychological well-being of our extended families. Meanwhile, I am expected to spend my own income on the beauty tax required to remain socially competitive in your professional circles. I am taking all the risks, career stagnation, biological toll, social reputation, while you simply exist as the primary beneficiary of my labor." August turned, his expression neutral, his posture open but rooted. He was a lead systems architect. He spent his days identifying vulnerabilities in complex infrastructures. He saw the logic of her argument as a poorly coded script, emotionally evocative but logically inconsistent. "Let's define our terms," August said calmly. "You've mentioned the beauty tax. Last year, your discretionary spending on skincare, fitness, and wardrobe exceeded $45,000. You categorized these as personal investments. I, in turn, covered the $8,000 monthly mortgage on this property, the insurance for both vehicles, our property taxes, and the entirety of our travel and dining expenses. My income facilitates your ability to invest nearly 90% of your salary into your private accounts. If you are subsidizing my life, I like to see the balance sheet that proves it." "You're doing it again," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "You're using financial figures to silence my emotional reality. My salary is my sovereignty fund. It's the only thing that protects me from the patriarchal vulnerability of this marriage. If I'm keeping my money while you pay the bills, that's not gold digging. It's historical redistribution. It's compensation." Internal analysis. She is attempting to reframe a parasitic financial arrangement as a moral imperative. By labeling her income as a sovereignty fund, she creates a psychological barrier against joint responsibility. She is moving from a partner model to an extraction model. "I see," August said. He didn't argue. He didn't get defensive. He simply observed the data. You believe that your presence and social management have a market value that exactly offsets our total cost of living. That's a bold valuation. I'll need to analyze the sustainability of that model. It's not a model, August. It's a requirement, she said, sensing a perceived victory in his lack of resistance. I'm going to change into something more comfortable. We're still going to the dinner at Murphy's, right? Of course, August said. I've already factored it into the schedule. The dinner at Murphy's was a small, intimate affair, just the four of them. Murphy was August's oldest friend, a man whose mind operated on a similar wavelength of cold logic, though he masked it better with a gregarious exterior. His wife, Ray, had attended the same retreat as Anaya. As they sat around the mahogany table, picking at an artisanal charcuterie board, the atmosphere felt brittle. August watched Ray. She was leaning in, her movements mirroring Anaya's. The retreat had clearly been a synchronization event. So, August, Ray said, swirling a glass of high tannin Cabernet. Anaya tells me you're having some trouble with the concept of the provider bonus. It's a difficult pill for men to swallow, recognizing that their financial contribution is actually the bare minimum required to offset the labor of the woman in their life. August set his water glass down. He looked at Ray, then at Anaya. He could see the expectation in their eyes. They wanted him to get angry. They wanted him to bluster about his hard work and his rights. If he did, they could categorize him as part of the problem and dismiss him. The concept is interesting, August said, his voice smooth and devoid of heat. But it relies on a zero-sum view of intimacy. If we commodify every social interaction, every birthday card sent to a mother-in-law, every meal cooked, every gym session attended to maintain an aesthetic, we aren't a family anymore. We're a service-level agreement. If Anaya is a contractor providing emotional labor, then I am a client. And in any client-contractor relationship, the client has the right to audit the services provided and determine if the cost is justified by the output. Anaya's face flushed. That's a disgusting way to look at a marriage. It's the way you framed it, Anaya, August replied, his gaze unwavering. You demanded compensation. You demanded a redistribution of funds. Those are the terms of a business arrangement. I am simply following your logic to its conclusion. If you want the autonomy of contractor, you lose the security of partner. You can't have both. Murphy cleared his throat, sensing the shift in the room. Maybe we should talk about the new development project in the city. No, Ray said, her voice rising. This is important. You think you could just logic your way out of the fact that women are exploited? You think your money gives you the right to dictate the terms of her existence? I haven't dictated anything, August said. I've simply paid the bills. Anaya is the one dictating a new financial structure. I'm just the one who has to decide if I'm going to fund it. Throughout the rest of the night, August remained composed. He didn't plead for Anaya's affection, nor did he react to the subtle barbs Ray threw his way. He was busy processing a new set of data points. He noticed Anaya and Ray exchanging glances when they thought he wasn't looking. He noticed the way Anaya checked a specific, encrypted messaging app on her phone. When they returned home, August didn't go to bed. He went to his study. He sat at his triple monitor setup and opened a secure terminal. He wasn't a hacker, but he was the man who built the systems hackers try to break. He understood digital forensics. He hadn't touched Anaya's phone. That would be a breach of his personal code. However, they shared a home network, and August had built a custom firewall that logged traffic metadata. He began to analyze the packets. He found that Anaya had been spending hours on a private, invitation-only forum called the Gilded Cage. He navigated to the public-facing landing page. The mission statement was clear, helping women maximize their return on relationship through strategic financial partitioning and provider management. He dug deeper. He found a series of white papers shared in the community. The Exit Fund, How to Build Your Sovereignty While He Pays the Rent. The Emotional Labor Pivot, Using Social Expectations as Financial Leverage. Phase 3, The Upgrade Strategy. August leaned back, the blue light of the monitors reflecting in his calm, gray eyes. The upgrade strategy. It wasn't about equality. It was a tactical manual for extraction. The goal was to use a stable provider to fund a total lifestyle makeover. Veneers, designer wardrobe, specialized training, while building a secret cache of wealth, all before upgrading to a higher status partner or an independent life of luxury. He checked their shared cloud storage. He found a hidden, encrypted folder. It took him 20 minutes to bypass the password, which was the name of the boutique where she'd bought the cashmere wrap. Inside were spreadsheets, detailed, cold-blooded spreadsheets. She had been skimming nearly $2,000 a month from the household and grocery budget for 2 years, redirecting it into an offshore account. She had also been returning expensive gifts August bought her, keeping the store credit and eventually cashing it out through a third-party site. Her sovereignty fund was currently sitting at $114,000. She wasn't his partner. She was a threat actor. Internal monologue. The integrity of the relationship is zero. The probability of a successful resynchronization is negligible. She has spent 24 months executing a slow-motion heist. My response must be a system-wide termination of access. The next morning, August was the picture of tranquility. He made Anaya a latte, exactly the way she liked it. "I've been thinking about your redistribution plan," he said as she sat at the breakfast nook. "I think you're right. We should evolve. I've decided to grant your request for total financial sovereignty." Anaya looked up, her expression a mix of triumph and suspicion. "You have." "Yes. Starting today, your salary is yours. I won't ask for a penny of it. I will continue to cover the mortgage and the utilities for the next 30 days to allow you to recalibrate your personal investments." That's wonderful, August. I knew you'd see the fairness in it." "I do," he said. "In fact, I'm so committed to your sovereignty that I want you to have the space to fully realize it. I've booked a suite for myself at the Meridian for the next month. I think a period of decoupled existence will help us both understand the value of our respective labors." Anaya blinked. This wasn't in the script. The script required him to stay in the house, paying for everything while she built her fund. "You're leaving? For a month? What about the house? What about our social life? You manage the social life, remember? That's your labor," August said, his voice gentle. "And as for the house, you're an independent woman with a 6-figure salary. I'm sure you can handle the day-to-day management. I've already paused the maid service and the grocery delivery subscriptions. Those felt like patriarchal interventions that were clouding the reality of your contributions." "August, wait. I've also notified Murphy and Ray that we're taking some reflective space. I told them it was your idea, a part of your sovereignty journey. I'm sure they'll be very supportive." He picked up his briefcase. "I'll be back on the 1st of the month to discuss the next phase. Enjoy your independence, Anaya." He walked out before she could find the words to stop him. He didn't feel the surge of adrenaline that comes with a fight. He felt the quiet satisfaction of a well-executed patch. He had removed the vulnerability. He had maintained his frame. Over the next 3 weeks, August monitored the situation from his suite. He didn't check her social media. He checked the bank alerts. The first week, she spent $4,000 on retail therapy. The second week, the reality of the $800 a month utility bill for a 5,000 square foot house hit. The third week, she discovered that managing a home without a funded grocery account or a maid service meant 4 hours of manual labor a day. Labor she was now doing for herself, unpaid. She called him 34 times. He didn't answer. He responded via text. I'm honoring your sovereignty, Anaya. Interruption would be a form of control. We will speak on the first. On the first of the month, August returned to the house. It looked diminished. The flowers in the entryway were dead. There was a thin layer of dust on the marble island. Anaya was sitting at the table, looking haggard. "We need to talk," she said, her voice stripped of its revolutionary fervor. "I agree," August said. He sat across from her and placed a folder on the table. "I've completed my audit of the sovereignty model. Here is the data." He opened the folder. It contained the screenshots of the Gilded Cage forum, the spreadsheets of her secret accounts, and a legal notice of separation. "You wanted to talk about risk, Anaya," August said, his eyes locking onto hers. "The risk in this relationship was entirely mine. I risked my capital, my credit, and my trust on a person who treats a marriage like a leverage buyout. You spoke of emotional labor as a way to guilt me into funding your upgrade strategy. But here's the logical flaw. Labor only has value if the employer wants the product. And I am no longer interested in the product you're selling." Anaya stared at the screenshots, her face turning a ghastly shade of pale. "August, those are just forums. I was just venting. It didn't mean anything." "It meant exactly what it said," August replied. "You wanted independence funded by my dependence. You wanted to be a sovereign while I remained a subject. But sovereignty is expensive, Anaya. It's not just a feeling. It's a set of responsibilities. And as of 9 a.m. this morning, those responsibilities are entirely yours." "What does that mean?" "It means I've sold my interest in this house to an investment group. They'll be here on the 15th to begin renovations. I've already moved my assets. Your sovereignty fund of $114,000 should be more than enough to get you a very nice apartment in the city. You wanted redistribution? Consider this the final payout." "You can't do this," she screamed, finally breaking. "I have rights. I'm your wife. You were a contractor, remember?" August said, standing up. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man who had just finished a very long, very tedious task. "And the contract has been terminated for cause. Financial infidelity, deceptive intent, and a total failure to provide the emotional labor you claimed was so valuable. If you were actually managing our social ecosystem, you would have seen this coming. But you were too busy managing your exit." He walked toward the door. "August, please, we can fix this. I'll give the money back." He stopped and looked back at her. He felt a brief flicker of pity, the way one might feel for a bird that had flown into a glass window, but it didn't compromise his frame. He knew that if he stayed, the extraction would simply become more sophisticated. "You don't understand, Anaya," he said. "This isn't a negotiation. It's a result. You spent 2 years building a life without me while living in the house I built. Now you get to live in the life you built. I hope it's as sovereign as you hoped." He walked out into the cool morning air. He had a meeting at 11 a.m. to discuss a new security protocol for a global bank. As he got into his car, he felt the hum of the engine, a steady, rhythmic vibration. It was a familiar frequency. It was the sound of a system that was once again functioning at peak efficiency. Months later, Murphy told him that Anaya had moved into a small studio and was dating a man who worked as a life coach. Apparently, she was still talking about emotional labor to anyone who would listen. August simply nodded. He was currently designing a home in the mountains, a place built on a foundation of solid granite and clear lines. He had learned a valuable lesson in risk management. The most dangerous vulnerability in any system is the one that claims it's there to protect you. He took a sip of his coffee, noted the temperature was exactly 145 degrees, and went back to work. He was August, and his world was once again under his control. He had audited his life and found that the most valuable asset he possessed wasn't his money. It was his ability to see the truth and the discipline to act on it.
Thanks for listening.